Ann Selzer is the best pollster in America, but she doesn't always get it right. Here's what Ann Selzer does that makes her so unique and actually better than everybody else. She doesn't model her vote based on the last election. So what does that mean? People will go to the 2020 election. They'll say, how many white people, how many black people, how many Asian people, how many Hispanic people, how many old people, how many young people, how many Republicans, how many Democrats. Okay, that's the same model we're going to apply now for 2024. Selzer doesn't do that. Selzer looks at the number of white people and black people and old people and young people and men and women and everyone else in Iowa. And she polls those people. And she asks them, are you going to vote? She does not go pull data on who has voted in the past to make them a likely voter. She does not ask a bunch of questions about people's voting propensities. She just asks, are you going to vote? And if they say yes, she considers them a likely voter. It's actually way more simplistic than other pollsters, and the result is she's gotten better data than everyone else. But she's had clunkers too. She, for example, projected a Romney win when Romney lost. She projected a Gore win when Gore lost. She doesn't have a perfect record. No pollster does. Here's what makes her unique, in addition to the way she asks polling, and this genuinely makes her stand out. She's willing to put a poll out that's a bad poll. And by the way, she deserves credit for that. Here's the truth. You talk to any data scientist in America, they'll tell you 1 out of every 20 polls by a pollster is going to be an outlier. That is, it's going to deviate from everyone else. What you're seeing in the polling averages right now is hurting. That is, a lot of pollsters don't want to come up at the end and be wrong. Everything suggests it's going to be a close race, so all the pollsters are putting very close polls out. Some polls are deviating from the extreme, and so what are the pollsters doing? They're adjusting their numbers to make it look like everybody else. The New York Times, Siena, and Ann Selzer are two of the very few who don't do that. They're not going to model their polling based on what other pollsters are finding. They're going to put their data out there, and if she's wrong, she's wrong. It's not going to end her career. It actually makes her a more credible pollster to pay attention to. Here's what I think Ann Selzer found. And the New York Times Siena poll and a poll out of Kansas are showing the same thing. There is a late-breaking shift to Kamala Harris of undecided voters. It turns out, whether you want to believe it or not, the kickoff last Sunday at Madison Square Garden for Donald Trump actually left a bad taste in people's mouths. People saw Tony Hinchcliffe come out, make the racist jokes. They saw all the talk about, the Nazis did this, blah, 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 blah. It actually impacted the emotional undecided voters. Remember, an undecided voter right now is an emotional voter, not a reasonable voter. And it did affect them. Whoever put Tony Hinchcliffe on that stage to start that rally should never work in politics again. It was political malpractice. But then came Joe Biden's garbage comment, and then came the jobs numbers, but then came Trump's Liz Cheney statement. And what we have found from the late-breaking undecideds in the deep focus grouping of the undecided voters at the end is that they had made up their minds, you know what, my God, the economy was so much better than his, I'm going to go vote for him. And in this last week, all of these issues from the Trump campaign made him, I don't know that I can actually pull the trigger. I don't want to go through 4 years of that much drama. That was the problem. But, and there's a big but here, I don't know that the shift is enough. There's a wild survey out of Kansas that shows Donald Trump with only a 5-point lead, and it is white women who are the problem. And this goes to the whole raccoon and squirrel story. I think what pollsters are finding, and in fact pollsters are very open about this, is that white liberal women love to talk to pollsters. A white liberal woman wants you to know they're a Kamala Harris supporter. A white liberal woman has the bumper sticker on the car. A white liberal woman has the sign in the yard. A white liberal woman has the camo cap. A white liberal woman has the sweatshirt. A white liberal woman is an advertisement for Harris Walls. And they are the people most likely to talk to the pollsters. So when Ann Selzer says there's been this big shift among older white women towards Kamala Harris, of course, those women are finding the pollsters and calling the pollsters themselves to say, you're never going to guess who I'm voting for. This is a problem that a lot of pollsters are starting to talk about, that older white women are more progressive, the single ones in particular, and they're seeking out they want people to know they're voting for Kamala Harris. And so you can accidentally oversample these people, and I think that's what Selzer did. So yes, she's picking up a trend that's reflected in the New York Times, but I think it's an oversampling of these people. Trump voters are still the least likely people in America to want to talk to pollsters. They just want to go vote. And what are we seeing from the early vote? Kamala Harris's ads are all over Columbus, Georgia. Columbus, Georgia is a big military town. It is on the border of Alabama. In fact, Chad is calling from Montgomery, Alabama, and the rumor is down there that a bunch of Alabamians have bought a bunch of septic tanks, and when they learn how to drive them, they're going to invade Columbus, coming across the Chattahoochee River from Phoenix City. They hadn't figured out how to drive the septic tanks yet. Columbus, Georgia, big military town. And in Columbus, Georgia, you got the infantry down there, and you got a lot of people who live in the suburbs of Columbus who are very Republican. The suburbs around Muskogee County, Georgia, where Columbus is, are very Republican, but the inside of Columbus is very Democrat. Black voters in Muskogee County have only voted at 80% of the rate they did in 2020 for Joe Biden. The surrounding area, where all the white people, all the Republicans live, is at 110% of turnout from 2020. There are counties in North Georgia that have early voted their entire 2020 vote. In other words, you look at how many people voted early and Election Day in North Georgia, and there are counties where more people have voted early than voted the entirety of 2020, and they're white. You look at any county in Georgia where the black vote is disproportionate, what you find is the early vote is less than it was in 2020. By the way, you go to North Carolina, same thing. The black voters in North Carolina are not turning out at the rate they were in 2020, and white Republican voters are disproportionately turning out. Now, the question is cannibalization. That's what Chad and I were talking about in our phone call. Some Republicans are worried that they've cannibalized their Election Day vote. That is, that the person was going to go vote on Election Day, but they voted early. Well, those are the same vote. So how many more Republicans are going to show up on Election Day than showed up early? If none of them do because they all voted early, well, then you're not going to get a different result from 2020, except the black vote is down. And the amount of black voters who would have to show up on Election Day in Georgia and North Carolina to overwhelm the polls is something that historically has never happened. The odds of it happening now are slim to none. It's never happened before. Those are the things keeping the Democrats up. Those are the things concerning the Democrats right now. And the Democrats, like in Pennsylvania, are saying, but look at the disproportionate number of women who showed up. The problem here is in Pennsylvania, women are disproportionately Democrat. So a woman voter is a Democratic voter in Pennsylvania. That's all you're seeing, is you're seeing the Democratic vote turn out with these women. But likewise, outside of the Philadelphia area, you're not seeing an increase in black vote. Now, that's not to say there are a massive number of black voters in Pennsylvania, but in the Philadelphia area, there are, and they're not turning out. Meanwhile, the working class white voters and Hispanic voters in the Pittsburgh area are showing up to vote early, and they're probably going to show up on Election Day. It's notable that Kamala Harris is going to spend her entire day today in Pennsylvania. Let me give you the map as a lay of the land right now. Democrats should win Nevada based on the polling, but the early vote in Nevada is so much in favor. Republicans have never historically turned out to vote ahead of Democrats in Nevada, and they have. Democrats are going to need to win independent voters by about 7% on Election Day to beat the GOP. Arizona looks to be going for Trump. Georgia looks to be going for Trump. North Carolina looks to be going for Trump. Kamala Harris spent some time in North Carolina there. It looks like she's now given up on North Carolina. Trump started the day there. He's going to be in multiple places in Pennsylvania and then end in Michigan. He's doing more campaign stops than Kamala Harris. If Trump wins, forget Nevada. If Trump wins Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, Donald Trump only needs to win one of the three Great Lakes states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin. Kamala Harris will have to win all three of the Great Lakes states if Donald Trump wins North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona. She's got to win all three of them. She's got to sweep. And she's only focused in Pennsylvania. It sounds more to me like Kamala Harris is trying to help Bob Casey at this point in Pennsylvania than help herself. It sounds more to me like Kamala Harris is trying to save the Senate for the Democrats than save herself. Donald Trump is going to all the swing states. Kamala Harris is not. That suggests to me that Donald Trump is in this to win and Kamala Harris is in this to minimize damage for the Democrats. You can only extrapolate so much from the early voting trends. But what you can extrapolate is this. Republicans overall have voted at rates we have not seen since George W. Bush's successful reelection campaign in 2004. And Democrats in Georgia, I can tell you from talking to Democrats in Georgia, they are very horrified by the early voting number for Democrats. They're not disappointed. They're horrified by the early vote in Georgia right now. The black vote in Georgia did not show up early for the first black female potential president of the United States. And by the way, the same thing has happened in North Carolina, and they are very perturbed by it.